We're going to let the attorney general do whatever the fuck he wants, and we
Whoa!
are never going to look
This is a family
crosswise
show,
at him.
punk.
People just don't care. Americans just don't think about the world. These are not the American voters of 30 or 40 years ago.
All these white women on there, they're like looking down. Here's Rachel Maddow, and here's this other, like, oh god. You hear it? She's talking to you. You didn't do enough. Should have voted harder. Reaction to President Trump's historic victory is about what you'd expect. A lot of people on the left and some so-called on the right, like Bill Kristol, remember this guy? They were on with the Bulwark, which is their anti-Trump, never Trump enterprise. They were covering the election last night, and you can see the looks on their faces as the news was becoming real. And let's listen to their conversation and see what they said.
I have always thought it was a coin flip election. I never imagined that Trump could win a resounding victory the way he has tonight. This is once more a failure of imagination on
Still
my
a news
part.
outlet. He hasn't won the resounding victory tonight. It looks like he's going to.
He's going to win the popular vote. He's going to win a larger share of the Electoral College than he did in 2016.
That's right.
This is, again, this is something that I absolutely failed to imagine was possible. And what this speaks to is a structural failure
of your brain.
Of the Biden administration approached the authoritarian attempt with the idea that, like, we're going to fake it until we make it. We're going to get back to politics as normal by doing politics as normal. We are going to do a whole bunch of popular legislation. We're going to work with Republicans. We're going to try to help red states. We're going to let the attorney general do whatever the fuck he wants, and we are never going to look
family show, punk,
because we're not going to politicize anything. And if we just act normal enough, everything will go back to being normal.
What'd you want to do? Arrest more people?
It turns out that the hour was already later than anybody realized.
Raid more of his houses?
And what they should have done was they should have been quite radical. They should have made DC a state. They should have actually expanded the Supreme Court. They should have done a whole bunch of stuff that would have been deeply unpopular.
Wow.
That would have caused enormous democratic losses, but would have restructured the framework in such a way as to make it harder for the next authoritarian. They should have been harder dictators. And I think...
And everybody's just sitting there like, yeah, probably should have done that.
The lesson Democrats will have to take from this is not going to be like, oh, well, we can't be PC or whatever. They're going to take from this that what they need is their own strongman. And I don't know that I could sit here and tell them that they're wrong. Kamala Harris went around the country with Liz Cheney doing outreach to Nikki Haley Republicans. And she was given stiff arm by the voters for that. They're not interested in outreach.
I want to noodle on
Bill
this.
is trying to jump in, though. Bill.
Yeah, but I want to noodle on
there are
that
many
quickly
different...
to Bill. Like, what do you think the Democrats, is it a strongman? Because I have totally different perception of what they need. But Bill, you go ahead.
Well, I'd say, look, there are many things going on and many things that are true and overlap with each other. And
all right, so they're trying to figure out what happened. This guy says we should have gone harder left Democrat. Okay, we should have really just reshaped the entire country. Open the borders harder, start more wars, and reshape the Supreme Court. And that is their path to victory. Now, turning our attention over to the Joe and Mika Brzezinski show, we've got some clips and highlights and reactions from all over the place. It was a lot of fun last night. So here's this one.
A lot of very legitimate discussion here about how Democrats lost this. Yeah. But I just got a text from a member of Congress saying, you know, something else we need to look at is how people are turning to social media, podcasts, and other non-traditional sources for their news, and also news stations that aren't news. And I canvassed in all of the battlegrounds. I was shocked by the amount of misinformation voters were truly repeating back to me. Truly shocked. I do believe this is what caused the collapse of the Democrats nationwide. You cannot win when people believe lies. But I think that's fair too.
Does she realize that she's talking about herself? Their whole station has been lying for years. Their whole show is mostly Joe Scarborough having a midlife crisis on the airwaves. So they should do some self-reflection, but they never will. Here was some more reaction. Some guy says, how do you spend $1 billion on this and not win? Easy. You just make Kamala the candidate. Not even hard.
A very abbreviated Harris campaign. We have not heard from her yet. We expect to hear from her in the morning. What are you hearing from inside the campaign right now about how they think this happened? You know, what the questions are that are being raised? I mean, I certainly have already heard some quiet so far, but people saying, well, you know, if Joe Biden had still been at the top of the ticket, would this have been different? I'm, of course, skeptical of that, but I want to know what you're hearing.
Yeah, the finger pointing is already starting, and it's only going to become more direct. I'll just give you two quotes from people that I talked to tonight. This former Biden advisor. How do you spend $1 billion and not win?
And I don't know about you, my friends, but in Arizona, we had ad after ad after ad. Don't have cable here, but I'd go to the gym. And it was Kamala all day. Kamala, abortion, 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 constantly. Didn't work.
There's a lot of F-bombs that get thrown.
Yeah, a lot of people not happy about it over there. Maybe they should have picked a better candidate and done something good for America. That's all they have to do is just just lead well, just enact good policies. Not complicated. The candidate almost doesn't even matter in many ways, right? A lot of people don't like President Trump. We saw last night they like his policies a lot more than they like Biden's policies. And so people want change. Just do a good job. And then you don't have to censor everybody and arrest your political opponents and then throw them off the ballots.
People just don't care. Americans just don't think about the world. These are not the American voters of 30 or 40 years ago. This is a very transactional electorate. I'll vote for you. You give me stuff. You bring down the price of eggs and the price.
That is the Democratic Party, dude. What are you talking about? We don't want anything from the government. We just want a sound dollar and normal supply chains that aren't perturbed by the government locking everybody down and regulating everything into oblivion, and then outsourcing all of our stuff to foreign governments and to foreign countries that make products and deliver goods and services at a fraction of the cost that we can provide those in America, because we don't use slavery here, rightfully so. We're not asking for a handout. We're not asking for $5,000 whatever fake government tax credits that Kamala is going to try to incentivize her voters with. $25,000 for illegals to go buy houses and those things. We're not asking for that. Just don't take what we already have, okay? We earn our money. We're happy with that. Just don't take it from us via taxation and inflation. That's all.
Price of gas, and you'll have my vote. And all the rest of this stuff, I just don't care.
All right, they just don't care. We're also just so stupid. And as long as our groceries go down, we'll vote for, I guess, whomever. Now, markets are soaring out there. You may have seen this. They were soaring as of this video. Hopefully, they're still booming out there, but this is what it looked like on the open today.
We'll say the stock market this morning is up 3% on the back of this news. You can look at Tesla, by the way, Elon Musk, who's going to play a huge role in this administration. At least that's the perception.
That's right, baby.
Up 15% this morning. By the way, stocks like Rivian, which competes with it, down. You're looking at Bitcoin up in a big way. You're looking at the DJT stock, that up as well. That one's, by the way, very hard to square, given actually Trump's ties to Elon. And you think either X is going to win or Truth Social would win, but it's unlikely that both will win, and both are not doing so well, at least on the economic end of it, though. I think X has clearly reached a real audience.
So, Andrew, on that broad market number, we showed that the Dow's up. I think it was 1,300 or so at last check. What's going into that? What is the market saying about Donald Trump as president policy-wise? What do they think happens from here?
Okay, so the first piece is they're thinking personnel is policy, and they're thinking that in terms of both executive orders and the regulatory state. So who's going to run the SEC? One of the reasons that Bitcoin is up is because they think that Gary Gensler is going to be booted, and there will be somebody who is friendly to crypto, friendly to business in that role. They think that Lena Khan is not going to have her job at the FTC anymore. All of the mergers that have been on hold the last 4 years, they think move ahead. So there's some of those component parts in this. They also seem to think that the tariff policy that we talk about, and we've talked about almost endlessly, is not something that's fully going to come to fruition, that it really is going to be used as a negotiating cudgel against other countries as opposed to broad-based tariff, and therefore it won't have the inflationary effects that we've talked about. We'll see about all that. And then the biggie, by the way, on the other side of all this is going to be tax policy. You know, this last tax policy does sunset in 2025, and now there's probably a better chance for that policy to at least stay where it is, if not shift in even more favorable ways, potentially towards the rich. We will see, but
towards the rich, yeah, it's always towards the rich because they actually pay the taxes, right? So here was Michael Steele yesterday. They're trying to plot, as we talked about earlier. Jack Smith is shredding files as we speak. Michael Steele, who apparently used to be a Republican with the RNC, he says, what's the countermeasure to what we see Donald Trump doing every day? Clearly, it's not enough to say democracy is at stake, because that's a stupid platitude that nobody even knows what it means anymore.
Because I'm going to set aside the MAGA piece for a while, because those Republicans, you know, like myself and Cheney and others.
You're not a Republican,
The question
Michael.
becomes, what is the other narrative that you put up? Because once MAGA begins to do its thing, which it will, I mean, tonight was Donald Trump standing there basically reading everything that was on the prompter, looking like, okay, we got this. But you could see, and you know, that there's going to be a slide into something else.
Well, we've seen this movie a thousand times.
We've seen this movie a thousand times. But here's the thing. The American people are okay with that.
What?
So what's the countermeasure? What's the countermeasure to what we see Donald Trump?
I don't know. You already prosecuted him 4 times, tried to take away his buildings, his businesses. You tried to smear him as an abuser. You tried to throw him off the ballot. You shot bullets at his head. What else do you want? What other countermeasures do you want, Michael? The American people don't believe in your twisted ideology. You guys should go see some psychiatrist or something, man, because the popular vote is now behind Trump. There are no countermeasures. We just voted to put him in power. Get on board.
Do every day, because clearly it's not enough to say democracy's at stake.
It's meaningless.
Because the American people are like, yeah, I don't really feel that. I don't think that. Now, even though, ironically, in our own exit polling, folks were like, democracy was important to them, right?
Well, but just to dig into that for a second, yes, but majority say democracy under threat, 75%, but among voters who believe that half went for Harris and half went for Trump.
Yeah, because
there you are. That's exactly where I was going. So you've got this space where there's a lot to learn from tonight. The challenge is going to be how the Democratic Party learns what it needs to learn and deal with what's going to come beginning on January 20th.
What?
When the further deconstruction of all the administrative states that we think hold this union together.
That's great.
Come under assault. Because, at the end of the day, it may not be Donald Trump, but a lot of people on that stage and a lot of people who are going to be in that oval with him, that's what they want to do. And as much as they want to lie about Project 2025, they laid it out. They're not going to just go, oh, well, we just 900 pages of nothing. That's not how this works. So you're going to see two competing moments that the country's going to confront, one of which they won't care about because they think Trump is good. So they're not going to be concerned about that. The Democrats are going to have to worry about that. Plus, to Jim's point, how do you begin to level up a message to turn around those numbers that they saw tonight?
All right, that was really painful. I don't even know what he's doing on the air, honestly. He just was talking total nonsense there. All right, so CBS was also very upset about this. This woman was ranting about Trump's victory.
Any country I have ever covered anywhere in the world, people vote on the 3 feet in front of them and the kitchen table they sit down at every day. And the economic issues are just so fundamental, and the experience of that. And, Nora, you said earlier, maybe we overfocused on grocery prices. I think, Donald Trump campaigns saying he's going to lower the price of bacon. The president of the United States has nothing to do with the price of bacon.
Or eggs, for that matter.
Or eggs, or any of it. But it's promising.
Gas.
I get you're uncomfortable, even though the head of the Federal Reserve and those guys, you don't quite know what they do back in Washington, but they're making your house more expensive because they're hiking up more.
Yeah, the president has a role in that.
You don't get that. You don't get the national number where Joe Biden is telling you, look, inflation is moderating and coming down, but you understand your grocery cart or your gas tank. And that personal experience just seems to be what at least people are using to justify their vote for Donald Trump when they're citing the economy.
They are treating everybody like they're idiots. They are not learning at all. Somebody who's really having a hard time with this is Keith Olbermann. Jeff Bezos had a nice congratulatory post to President Trump. Says, big congratulations to our 45th and now 47th president on an extraordinary political comeback and a decisive victory. No nation has bigger opportunities. We're about to enter the golden era. Let's go, Jeff. Wishing real Donald Trump all success in leading and uniting the America we all love. All right, so from Keith. Not happy. So here was another one. This came over from this gentleman. His name is Jonathan Capehart. He's an associate editor over at MSNBC, and he was saying, democracy's over.
I come to elections with a sense of humility, simply because, polls don't vote, people vote. And so in elections, we finally get to hear what the American people have to say.
Yeah.
And I've come to this election with an open mind, and I want to know what the American people have to say.
Okay.
What was it? 6 hours ago, I was mystified by what was going on. And now I can't help but think that if this election seems to be, if it proves out that the millions of people who are watching Fox News, if that ends up being the case, then I can't help but wonder if the American people have given up on democracy simply because of what he's told us, what he wants to do, simply because of what the Supreme Court decided in terms of immunity. He has said he wants to go after his political enemies. I am your retribution. So if indeed what Fox is reporting, if that ends up being true and ends up being the case, then this conversation about who we are as a country, I was going to say it will, pop off in earnest, but I think we will have an answer, especially because I'm looking over your shoulder. Right now, Donald Trump has 51.2% of total votes.
That's right, baby.
51.2.
Yeah, 51.2 of total votes. Relax. You're going to be fine, okay? Your currency is going to be stronger. Your streets are going to be cleaner. Your neighborhood's going to be safer. Your food's going to be healthier. Our country is not going to be in multiple wars. We'll have less dead kids. So just relax. It's going to be fine. Calm down. All right, here's Al Sharpton saying the same thing, saying racism and sexism. All right, so if you just want a better country, you're now a bigot because you didn't vote for Kamala.
Well, I think a serious assessment must be made to really understand the fear that Donald Trump was able to play on people. What? And to really, rather than just finger point and name call, really understand what drove a lot of voters to not go where, in my opinion, logic should have brought them, and whether the messaging was right. But I also go back to the point I made earlier and Joe raised. We cannot ignore there is still a lot of racism and gender bias in this country.
Wow.
And I think for us to ignore that and not try to bring that front and center so we can heal that would mean that we would end up in the same place. Kamala Harris is a woman of color in an interracial interracial marriage and running as a woman to be the head of state. That is something a lot of Americans are not ready to deal with. How we move that forward, we need to face it and deal with it. And I hope we do it in a way that shows that we will be more mature than when they lost. There will be no January 6th insurrection from our side. It must be the maturing of America.
All right, so pretty interesting there from Sharpton. It's never going to be Kamala or policies or the fact that she's a terrible candidate who couldn't even talk to anybody when she sat down to do interviews, said the same stupid lines over and over again, had the same rehearsed speeches, not authentic at all. Nobody liked her 4 years ago. Was she also a victim of racism and bigotry when the Democrats didn't vote for her, when Joe Biden beat her during the primaries? Was that racism and bigotry too? Because that was the Democrats. No, it's always an excuse. Just have to find some other reason why she didn't win. We all know the reason why. She's a terrible candidate. It has nothing to do with her race or her gender. Here's Marco Rubio making the rounds.
Donald Trump appealed to Americans as Americans, irrespective of your background or your customs or what music you listen to or how your last name is pronounced. This is more than just a realignment. I hope it's a realization that when you come to this country and you put your roots down here and you raise your children here, you become an American. And everything from our economy to our safety to our national security matter as much to you as they do to anybody else in this country. Donald Trump appealed.
All right, so that's right, Marco Rubio. He did. And people want improvements in their lives. And here, black voters came through for Kamala Harris, but white women did not. Joy Reid's not happy about this.
It's a state that I think Democrats definitely were reaching for. There was a lot of work to try to turn out the college campuses, which were really thick and really packed, and try to turn out the suburbs. And I think there was a lot of hope because of just the insanity, can we say fairly, of the person who's running for governor in that state, and a thought that, defeating him would also carry Harris. But in the end, if they didn't make their numbers and essentially exceed the numbers that Joe Biden had in the suburbs, and I think we have to be blunt about why. Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. That is what it appears happened in that state.
White women.
Is that if you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times.
Don't you want your abortions?
You have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks. Yep. But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris.
White women, all these white women on there, they're like looking down. Here's Rachel Maddow, and here's this other, like, oh, God. You hear it? She's talking to you. You didn't do enough. Should have voted harder. All right, so awkward, kind of racist, whatever. But all right, here's Cenk. He's one Democrat who's absolutely right on this one. He says, as predicted, okay, Democrats are all over TV this morning blaming different demographic groups for their loss. White women and black men and Latinx individuals. No, it's your fault, idiots. Democratic leadership is the establishment, obviously. Now, which is despised. People didn't vote based on race or gender. They voted on how much they hated your elitism from a Democrat. So one of them got it. The only one I've seen thus far is right. Yeah, they're the elites, so-called. And I don't even like that word because they're not elite. They're idiots.